Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded, recently hitting 6 million listens. Support us by buying a copy of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a small donation. In return, we'll give you the chance to nominate a guest and even win lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. Find out more at italianwinepodcast.com. Cin Cin!
For all the super wine geeks out there, we have a special new series dedicated to you. We are reading excerpts from our new edition of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0. Wine lovers, tune in for your weekly fix only on Italian Wine Podcast. If you want to own a copy of this new must-read Italian wine textbook, just go to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com.
Sicily, Sicilia. Historical background. Before the advent of the Hellenic colonization, Sicily was inhabited by various populations, including the Sicans, Elymians, and Siculians. The few and fragmented historical records of these populations come to us from the Greeks, who, when they began to settle in Sicily from the 8th century BC, found the region divided between the Sicans in the west, the Siculians in the east, and the Elymians in the northwest. The Sicans believed to be of Iberian origin until the Greek historian Timaeus, quoted by Diodorus Siculus in his Bibliotheca Historica, confirmed that to be indigenous, were pushed into the western part of the island following a significant eruption of Mount Etna that affected vast areas of land. With the arrival of Greek colonizers in the 8th century BC, Sicily was subsumed into the Magna Graecia, a period that saw the foundation of some of the island's most striking cities, including Naxos, Syracuse, Lentini, Catania, and Messina. Naxos, which was established by the Chalcadians, even bore a bunch of grape on its coinage. Syracuse was designed by the Corinthians. All over the island, art and culture flourished, and eminent figures such as Archimedes, Charonda, Epidecles, Epicharmus, Gorgias, Sophron, and Stesichorus distinguished themselves on their island. The Greek colonization of Sicily brought about an important development of enological culture. Nor should the contribution made by the Phoenicians be overlooked, especially in the western part of the island, where wine took on sacred significance. They also introduced certain grape varieties, including Biblinus, originally from Thrace, and used to make Pollio, the wine of Syracuse, perhaps the oldest wine in Italy. Opinions are divided. For some, this vine can be identified with today's Moscato di Siracusa. For others, it was a red grape variety, and the wine obtained was sweet and liquor-like, perhaps a relative of Nerello or Frappato, genetically linked to the Calabrian Gaglioppo. Among the wines mentioned in Roman times was Mamertino, the wine with which Caesar celebrated his victories over the Gauls. Malvasia di Lipari, whose name derives from the contraction of Monembasia, a Byzantine stronghold located on a promontory south of Peloponnese, is linked to the success of sweet wines that added to the commercial fortunes of the Venetians in the Middle Ages. With the arrival of the Greeks and the founding of the colonies, myth and legends were also born, of which wine and agriculture in general were prominent subjects. The Greek presence prospered for a good 5 centuries, a period during which the Sicilians became expert wine growers, giving impetus not only to the production of wine, but also to a thriving amphora industry, especially of the so-called Greco-Italic style. Following the arrival of the Romans, production continued to grow and expand throughout the territory. In fact, Sicilian wines were considered among the best and were exported to every corner of the empire. With the fall of the Roman Empire, Sicilian viticulture experienced long years of stagnation, punctuated by occasional spells of prosperity. It was not until the arrival of the Arabs in 827 AD that the Sicilian agriculture system flourished once again, and with it, wine production.
Wine to Wine Business Forum. Everything you need to get ahead in the world of wine. Supersize your business network. Share business ideas with the biggest voices in the industry. Join us in Verona on November 13 to 14, 2023. Tickets available now at winetowine.net.
New techniques were applied and other cultivars added to the mix, including Moscato d'Alessandria and Zibibbo, with its aromatic and crunchy grapes destined mainly for consumption as table grapes. The arrival of the Normans in the 11th century brought the island back into a sphere of European culture, although during their domination, the Arabs had continued not to take an interest in a variety of agricultural crops. It was first with the Angevins and then with the Aragonese that a real boom began in vines as a crop that improved agricultural income, and wine became a valid currency for the payment of taxes and levies. Sicilian wines, including Mantonico, Mamertino, Vernaccia, Moscatello, Malvasia, Bonaggia, and Bianco Comune, began to be in demand again in the markets of northern Italy and Europe, thanks in part to the commercial skills of Catalan, Genoese, Pisan, and Venetian merchants. Many foreign markets favor specific production areas, such as Etna. The region experienced a new period of fame, with the turning point coming in 1773, when the English merchant John Woodhouse tasted the wine produced in Marsala and realized its extraordinary potential. There began a profitable trade within England, which subsequently expanded to the rest of the English colonies and beyond. This commercial development created a growth of the entire wine-growing system of the western part of the island, which became the most viticulturally fertile and led the entrepreneur Vincenzo Florio to begin producing his Marsala in 1832, underpinning the economic empire which enabled him to become the most important Italian shipowner of the era. At the end of the 19th century, with the arrival of phylloxera, Sicily too watched helplessly in a large part of its viticultural heritage was destroyed. The disease hastened a slow decline in Sicilian wine-growing activity that lasted until the first half of the 20th century, before finally recovering in the late 1970s and early 1980s, a period that marked the qualitative rebirth of Sicilian wine. However, the role played by the demand from France for Sicilian wine after the destruction wrought by phylloxera should not be forgotten, particularly wine from the Etna area. Under unfortunately short-sighted production logic, Etnian vine growers chose to increase yield by choosing varieties capable of ensuring greater production and alcohol content. In the decade 1871-1880, Sicilian wine exported abroad rose from about 100,000 to more than 760,000 hectoliters per year. This exceptional surge in Sicilian blended wine exports, which might have appeared cyclical, actually became a constant in Sicilian enology until after the Second World War. Geomorphology. Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean. Formerly known as Trinacria because of its triangular shape, it is surrounded by sea, to the north by the Tyrrhenian Sea, to the east by the Ionian Sea, to the south by the Mediterranean Sea, and is separated from the peninsula by the Strait of Messina. Surrounding it are some of the most striking archipelagos of the Mare Nostrum, the cradle of the most important Western civilizations in history, the Aeolian, Egadi, and Pelagic Islands, and the islands of Ostica, Pantelleria, Linosa, and Lampedusa, the southernmost point of Italy. In the northeastern part of the island is the volcano Etna, which rises to more than 3,350 meters above sea level. It is the most active volcano in Europe, together with Stromboli, an island in the Aeolian archipelago. Mountain cover 24.4% of Sicily's surface area, a percentage characterized by several important reliefs, some of which belong to the domain known as the Calabro-Peloritanian Arc, composed of fragmented of the Alpine chain from the Sardo Corso block formed in the Miocene, which separated from the original block and migrated southeastwards to position itself between the Apennines, precisely under the Pollino Massif, and northern Sicily near Monti Peloritani, between Messina and Patti, effectively linking the Apennines to the Sicilian and African Maghreb. The mountain chain then continues to the west with the Nebrodi mountain chain, whose highest peak is Mount Soro at 1847 meters above sea level, and continues with the Madonie, culminating with the Pizzo Carbonara peak at 1977 meters above sea level, extending on one side as far as the valley of the river Torto. A little further south, towards the center of the island, lies Monti Erei, on which the city of Enna is located at about 931 meters above sea level. The flat part of the island, which occupies 14.2% of the total surface area, covers the southwestern coastal area, while the remaining 61.4% is completely hilly, with plateaus reaching up to 800 meters above sea level. The island enjoys a generally Mediterranean climate with very hot summers and fairly mild winters, while along the coastal area, the climate is subtropical, changing towards the interior in the presence of the high hills from 500 meters above sea level, where the average annual temperatures fall significantly. The rainfall, concentrated in the winter period in the higher areas, and of course the sirocco and westerly winds that affect the temperature and thus the ripening of the management of the vineyards, also contribute to the wine growing activity. From a geological point of view, Sicily belongs to the African plate, with the exception of the northeastern part, which belongs to the Eurasian plate, formed by the Apennine Maghrebian chain, which is represented by a classic pellicular stratum structure characterized by sedimentary soils of carbonate and siloclastic terrigenous composition. The area located in the southeastern corner of Sicily, below the Apennine chain, is in a transition zone between the two plates called Avampese Ibleo. It gave rise to the Gela Catania Avanfossa, consisting of Cretaceous cliff limestones. In the northeastern part of the island rise the Monti Pelirotani, which represent the southernmost portion of the Calabrian Pelirotanian Arc and consist of crystalline strata. The island is home to Europe's largest active volcano, Etna, of basaltic nature, which originated in the Middle Pleistocene with eruptive activity, at first submarine and then, with the uplifting of the coast, subaerial. Much of the present volcanic edifice is covered by recent effusive products of various kinds, consisting of compact rocks and accumulations of pyroclasticity. A particular clay with considerable water storage capacity, called allofane, enables the vines to survive long periods of summer drought. Another phenomenon that should not be overlooked is sedimentary volcanism, present in the sites of the Macalupe di Arragona, near Agrigento, and the Macalupe di Terrapelata in Caltanissetta. This phenomenon renders the area barren, whitish in color, and characterized by a series of mud volcanoes about a meter high. Since antiquity, this geological liveliness has allowed the development of an important viticultural activity and enabled the possibility of maintaining a first-rate ampelographic heritage in which white grape varieties such as Catarratto Grillo, Insolia, Carricante, Moscato Bianco, and Moscato d'Alessandria, and Malvasia di Lipari, and black grape varieties including Calabrese or Nero d'Avola, Perricone, Nerello Mascalese, Nerello Cappuccio, Nocera, and Frappato have prospered. A quick overview of the main denominations in this region sees the most extensive concentration after the recent Sicilia DOC between the territories of Trapani and Palermo in the western part of the region. This is the Alcamo DOC, which is located on the soft hills of the flesh substrates of arenaceous marly composition. The types specified in the regulations are Bianco, also Spumante, Bianco Classico, Vendemmia Tardiva, Catarratto Ansonica or Insolia, Grillo, Grecanico, Chardonnay, Mulla Turgau, Sauvignon, Rosato, also Spumante, Rosso, also Riserva and Novello, Calabrese or Nero d'Avola, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Shiraz. Near Palermo is the Contea di Sclafani DOC denomination, where the vineyards are cultivated on land belonging to the Apennine Maghrebian chain, which has sedimentary soils of a terrigenous and carbonate nature. Not far from Palermo, towards Trapani, the city of Marsala boasts a domination in its name. For this famous and renowned liqueur wine, grapes such as Grillo, Catarratto, Damaschino, and Insolia are used for the white version, while the ruby version uses Pignatello, Calabrese, Nerello Mascalese, and Nero d'Avola. In the Messina area, the soils are sandy clayey, with a rocky substratum made up of metamorphic schistose matrices, with the Faro DOC, which mainly uses grape varieties such as Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio, Gaglioppo, and Calabrese. The Menfi DOC is located between the municipalities of Menfi, Sambuca, and Sciacca in the province of Agrigento, and covers a large area in the hilly part of eastern Sicily, where the soils are mostly from the Tertiary period and have a clayey, sandy composition with intercalations of conglomerate and chalk. Noto, a city famous for its Baroque historic center that has been declared UNESCO World Heritage Sites, has Noto DOC, concentrated in small production area, where the Moscato of the same name is produced. The Moscato Bianco vineyards are cultivated on soils of a carbonate nature consisting of calcarenitic deposits of marine origin. Finally, there are the two DOC areas located on the Sicilian islands. The first on the island of Salina, in the center of the Aeolian archipelago, northeast of Sicily, and the second on the island of Pantelleria, south of Sicily. Malvasia delle Lipari is a grape variety that is said to have been imported to Salina by the first Greek colonists between 588 and 577 BC. The vineyards are mainly located on volcanic soils, rich in minerals, including silica and potassium, which influence the characteristics of the wine. The vines are trained very low due to the strong and constant wind on the island, on ash, pumice, and dark-colored volcanic slag. The other denomination, no less important, is Moscato di Pantelleria DOC, which originates on the island of the same name in the province of Trapani, in the center of the Sicilian Channel, about 50 miles from Tunisia. The island is characterized by an extinct volcano whose various eruptive phenomena of pumiceous nature have given rise to several reliefs, one of the highest of which is Montagna Grande, that rises to 836 meters above sea level, while the other is Monte Gibele, which reaches 700 meters above sea level, both in the southern eastern part. Vine cultivation was introduced by the Arabs when they settled permanently on the island around 835 AD and was facilitated by the volcanic soils drawing nourishment from the numerous minerals offered by the light soil rich in a special clay, panteledanite, which allows water to be stored during the winter period. The albarello cultivation system is typical of the southern Mediterranean islands. Grown low, between 30 and 40 centimeters in height, with or without support, with 3 or 4 branches up to a meter long at the ends, of which in a spur of 1 to 2 buds. Vines are set inside characteristic conches, 20 centimeters deep holes, surrounded by dry stone walls, more than 100 centimeters high, which protect them from strong sea winds.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, Cin Cin.